Next on Currents News, new warnings tonight about ISIS. The terrorists are getting stronger again, and the U.S. is worried about what's happening in Syria and Iraq. Italy is in turmoil tonight. The Prime Minister is quitting and the government has collapsed. The outcome of Cardinal George Pell's appeal is about to be released by an Australian court. He's seeking to overturn his conviction on child sex abuse allegations. Plus, the church that Harriet Tubman helped start has been hit by lightning. We'll have the latest on what the resulting fire destroyed. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. Top U.S. officials are putting out new warnings tonight about ISIS. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying that in some places, the terrorists are more powerful today than they were years ago, although he's downplaying the risk. The hotspots are in Iraq and Syria. Whitney Wild reports the latest.
There are growing concerns about the resurgence of ISIS in the wake of a deadly attack by the terror group on a wedding party in Afghanistan. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo seems to be downplaying the risk.
We executed a plan with 80 other countries to defeat ISIS. We were very successful.
Pompeo told CBS News that campaigns against ISIS wiped away most of the group's physical boundaries.
What we've always said is the caliphate's been gone and that there's always risk that there'll be a resurgence, not just from ISIS.
But a Pentagon Inspector General's report issued earlier this month indicates the risk is already a reality. It shows ISIS is deepening its hold on Iraq and resurging in Syria, a troubling development since President Donald Trump announced a drawdown of U.S. forces in Syria. Rear Admiral John Kirby says the report is clear.
It means that ISIS remains a viable terrorist network.
A camp near the border with Iraq, which houses tens of thousands of people displaced by violence, is especially vulnerable. The report points out as troops head home, monitoring the camp is difficult. ISIS views the displaced Syrians there as potential new recruits. And the terror group's ideology is spreading fast.
There's virtually no security. As a matter of fact, ISIS elements inside that camp are, in fact, providing security.
In Washington, Whitney Wild, Currents News.
There's a lot of uncertainty in Italy tonight. The government has collapsed. Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte quit this morning. He'd been the leader for 14 months. Interior Minister Matteo Salvini is increasingly popular in the country and is known for a hardline anti-immigrant stance. He's expected to try and form a new government. Pope Francis has sounded several alarms recently about anti-immigrant politics. Also, Italy is refusing to open its ports to migrants on the orders of Interior Minister Salvini. Today, at least 15 refugees jumped into the Mediterranean, hoping to swim to the island of Lampedusa. For nearly 3 weeks, hundreds of people on international rescue ships have been stranded at sea by Italy's refusal to let them dock. The Italian Coast Guard helped in the rescue of the swimming migrants from the water. The crew of one vessel, the Open Arms, is calling the situation out of control and desperate. Immigrants being held in the U.S. are suing the government over conditions in detention facilities. They're accusing officials of providing shoddy medical care and no accommodations for disabilities. ICE won't talk about the suit, but does say comprehensive medical care is provided to all detainees. At the same time, more than 250 faith leaders have signed up in opposition to new Trump administration rule requiring asylum seekers to apply for protection in the countries they travel through. The religious people are calling that a backdoor asylum ban. Another big story is breaking right now in an Australian courtroom. That's where Cardinal George Pell is about to learn the outcome of his appeal. The senior Catholic cleric has been in custody since being sentenced in March to 6 years in prison. He is arguing that his conviction on child sex abuse allegations should be overturned. Currents News' Emily Drewby reports the latest.
It is Wednesday morning in Australia, and 3 Supreme Court judges are about to decide on Cardinal George Pell's appeal. He was convicted last December of molesting 2 choir boys inside an Australian cathedral in 1996. His lawyers argued at a June hearing that the case presented by prosecutors included claims that were, quote, improbable and even impossible, saying that the abuse accusations couldn't have happened as alleged.
You all right there? You all good?
There are several potential outcomes for Cardinal Pell. The court could let him go free, order a retrial, or reject the appeal outright.
How are you feeling?
The accusations against Cardinal Pell became public in June of 2017. He left his Vatican post as financial chief to return to Australia and defend himself.
Cardinal Pell, acting in full respect for civil laws, has decided to return to his country to face the charges against him.
Prosecutors put him on trial, but the case ended in a deadlocked jury. A second trial was held in December 2018, and the cardinal was found guilty of abuse. Judge Peter Kidd issued a 6-year prison sentence in March.
I am conscious of the heavy reality that I am about to sentence you, a man of advanced years, who has led an otherwise blameless life, to a significant period of imprisonment.
This 78-year-old Catholic cleric has been held behind bars ever since. Back at the Vatican, then Papal spokesman Alessandro Gessotti reacted to the decision.
This is painful news that, as we are well aware, has shocked many people.
Cardinal Pell is the highest-ranking Vatican official to be accused of wrongdoing. Right now, he's banned from celebrating public mass and prohibited from having any contact with minors. The Church has also started a canonical process that could lead to the cleric being removed from the College of Cardinals or laicized from the priesthood. Cardinal Pell has steadfastly said that he is innocent.
I'm innocent of these charges. They are false.
Today's ruling is probably not the end of the Pell case. Whichever side loses is likely to appeal the decision to Australia's highest court. Emily Druby, Currents News.
We'll have complete wrap-up and analysis of Cardinal Pell's appeal on tomorrow's Currents News. The reconstruction of Notre Dame Cathedral is back underway tonight in Paris. Workers got the all clear yesterday that contamination from lead is under control. Builders can be seen wearing protective masks at the site. When the Holy Week fire ripped through the landmark, toxic metals were released into the air. Over 400 tons of lead roofing burned in the fire. The reconstruction of Notre Dame was halted for weeks for the cleanup. The building structure is still vulnerable. Several stones fell in the church's nave after a recent heat wave. Tonight, America's largest abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, is out of millions of taxpayer dollars. The organization refused to follow the Trump administration's Protect Life rule, which prevents abortions from being used as a means of family planning. Planned Parenthood is losing about $60 million, but still gets some $500 million from the feds through other programs. A former Planned Parenthood whistleblower is being awarded $3 million after she complained about the group's abortion facilities. Myra Rodriguez was fired after she raised concerns about ethical and legal breaches at the clinics in Arizona. She said there were eye-opening problems, including physician malpractice and falsified records. She claims that when she went to Planned Parenthood supervisors, she was terminated. Some good news for the good book. Bibles printed in China are exempt from the upcoming tariffs in the trade war. The Office of U.S. Trade Representative says religious literature will not face next month's 10% tariff hike. Christian publishers are breathing a sigh of relief because the tax would make translations too costly to produce. China is the world's largest Bible publisher. An important update tonight for everyone watching. The con artists are back, targeting the generosity of parishioners in the Brooklyn Diocese by pretending to be priests. We first warned you about them 4 months ago. Now they're using a new tactic, the latest incident happening last night. It's a scam that's now frequently targeting parishioners in the Brooklyn Diocese. The con artists are once again hitting parishioners, this time with emails. Quick assistance needed, says the message popping up in people's inboxes. In the latest case, the scammers posing as Father Francis Colamaria, the pastor at St. Helen's Church in Howard Beach, Queens. The imposters asking for gift cards. a hoax Annette Clark knows well.
It says, "Hi, Annette, I need you to do me a favor," which is not unusual.
Clark, a parishioner at St. Rose of Lima Church in Rockaway, Queens, was targeted back in May when scammers were soliciting people by text message. What was unusual was the phone number with a 929 area code. The phony message allegedly coming from the church's pastor, Father James Caroli.
That was from a number that she did not recognize, but it had my name on it, asking for gift cards for cancer patients.
The text asked Clark to buy $300 worth of gift cards, scratch the barcodes on the back, and send photos of the PIN numbers. She was on her way to purchase them, but when she arrived at her local Rite Aid store, she said something clicked.
I found something strange, and I'm looking. I said, why is Father responding as Father James A. Caroli? He would never send me a text like that.
The scammer kept texting Clark. She stopped responding and reported it to the NYPD. Clark was lucky, but other Catholics can't say the same. Scammers have continued to target parishioners all over the Brooklyn Diocese.
We don't send out texts and ask you then to donate things like gift cards.
That's John Heyer, director of the annual Catholic Appeal, a campaign conducted in every church in Brooklyn and Queens. According to Heyer, it is possible for Catholics to receive a text message, but only when they send a text message first, signing up for an annual Catholic Appeal notification.
And then you would receive in response a link to the annual Catholic Appeal donation page where you could give your donation, which is completely secure.
And although the online fraudsters are preying on the goodwill of the faithful, Father Caroli believes there is power in compassion.
You pray for that person, but you also have that hope that that person recognizes that what they've done is something that's wrong and that they convert themselves into a better way of life.
Now, with this latest fraud tactic landing in the parishioners' email inboxes, everyone needs to be careful their church contributions don't fall into the hands of crooks. The scams have even spread down to the Archdiocese of Miami. Archbishop Thomas Wensky is warning his parishioners to beware of fake texts asking for money. There's a lot more news headed your way. We'll tell you what happened after lightning struck a New York church that has close ties to Harriet Tubman. Prayers are being offered at the Ocean's Edge in Florida. It's part of a frantic rescue mission. A Catholic bioethics expert will be here to talk about a crisis that involves the earliest stages of life. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstip@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Harriet Tubman escaped slavery and spent the rest of her life building missions to rescue others. Now, the house of worship near Syracuse that's closely linked to one of the nation's best-known abolitionists is in trouble. It was struck by lightning and caught fire. Dan Messino reports there's been significant damage.
It's an irreplaceable part of the American story. This church, Harriet Tubman helped start it. It was also the site of her funeral in 1913. And yesterday, Mother Nature came extremely close to burning it down.
I heard a very, very loud boom.
Tim Race lives right across the street and heard a powerful bolt of lightning strike close by.
It shook me in my shoes.
He went out, caught this video of smoke pouring out of the steeple. Fire crews were on the scene quickly.
You can see that there's significant damage to the spire.
Andrea Decoder with the National Park Service says the church opened in the late 1800s. Tubman, a National Historic figure, was a member for 3 decades.
My first thought was a huge amount of concern for the structure itself and hoping that the damage could be mitigated, that it wouldn't be significant.
Now, a National Park team of historical architects are inspecting the church and assessing the damage.
I mean, your initial thoughts are horror.
Stephen Spalding, a historical architect, has been on the scene all day. He says the fire and water damage is significant. Now, they're trying to dry the inside of the building. The worry, can they preserve the original finishings?
Can't replace that historic fabric. What was there when Tubman worshipped here, what was there during her memorial service is what the Park Service is most concerned with.
The church was in the middle of renovations when the lightning struck, and part of those repairs, installing a lightning protection system. Family and friends of 2 missing firefighters are praying for a miracle on the Florida coast tonight after Brian McClooney and Justin Walker went out on a fishing trip 4 days ago and haven't been seen since.
We want to say some prayers, offer up some prayers out into the ocean for Brian and Justin, and then just walk the beach again and see if we can see any debris, or at least just, send our spirit out there so that they know that we're here pulling for them.
Dozens of boats, 6 helicopters, and more than 100 volunteers are searching for the 2 boaters. Yesterday, one volunteer did find a clue, a tackle bag which Brian's wife says belonged to her husband. There's a growing crisis tonight involving the earliest stages of life. There are news reports that millions of human embryos have been abandoned at fertility clinics around the country. There are no regulations on caring for the embryos, and the reports are that many have been destroyed and discarded. The National Catholic Bioethics Center is dedicated to defending human dignity in healthcare. John Brahaney is their Director of Institutional Relations, and he joins us now from Philadelphia. John, thank you so much for being here. What's the root cause of this problem? Why are so many human embryos being abandoned?
I think it's a combination of increasing technology and then a consumerist mindset when it comes to children. IVF and artificial reproductive technologies were created ostensibly to deal with the problem of infertility, but more and more it's a consumer mentality that is fueling people's approach to having children. And that is resulting in more embryos being created than anyone could ever bear or have as children.
Since embryos are eggs that have been fertilized, the Catholic Church has strong teachings on this, especially when it comes to using them for research, correct?
Absolutely. And if I could just issue a quick correction, embryos are human beings anywhere from 4 days to about, I think, 7 or 8 weeks of gestation. So they're beyond the egg stage. They're young human beings. So to abandon them, or even worse, to give them to scientific researchers who will use them in destructive forms of research is really a terrible crime against human life and human dignity.
One of your colleagues at the National Catholic Bioethics Center is saying that trust funds should be set up for the human embryos. How would that work?
Well, the reason Father Tad Pekulsik says that is it does not appear that there's a clear ethical solution to bring these children to term, since the Church teaches the procreation should take place only within a marriage and only from a marital act. So even if people wanted to rescue these embryos out of good motives, they, in a sense, would be engaging in artificial reproduction themselves. So the best we can do, it appears in the short term, if we don't abandon them or destroy them, is to preserve them until we can come up with an ethical solution. That's the idea. It's feasible because the storage fees are $500 to $1,000 a year. People spend much more money to send their children to camp sometimes or to private schools. So it's a feasible expense, but it's a great moral dilemma.
There's another idea that's known as prenatal adoption. What does the Church have to say about that?
Yeah, the Church, it did speak about that in the year 2008 in its most recent guidance on artificial procreation called Dignitas Personae, the dignity of the human person. And it didn't encourage that at all. Again, for someone to adopt an embryo, it would require that the wife in a sense, have her body changed and participate in artificial reproduction. So Pope John Paul II said years ago that it appears that we've created a dilemma for which there is no ethical solution. So prenatal adoption is not an ethical solution, at least according to most of the ethicists at the National Catholic Bioethics Center and according to the most recent teaching of the Church.
Interesting. John Brahaney, Director of Institutional Relations at the National Catholic Bioethics Center, thank you for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Still to come, a Currents News exclusive report. It's about runners and walkers making a big statement about true love. And the heartwarming story about a surprise gift, a dress for church. And the tablet has a brand new page called Our Diocesan Family, where you can share your pictures of recent baptisms, Holy Communions, confirmations, marriage, all the joyous sacraments. For more details and to submit your photos, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. Your pictures may be published in an upcoming issue of the newspaper. We'll be right back. The race along Staten Island's Midland Beach was run with a very special message guiding the people taking part. It's about how virtue can make a lifelong difference for everyone. Currents News' Tim Harfman has more on the race for the chase.
Okay, everybody listen up. We're going to start in about a minute.
Runners lining up for a cause, raising money for love.
Go!
I'll see you on the other side. Yeah.
Dozens of people in stride for the second annual Race for the Chaste.
The Race for the Chaste is the way for us to celebrate the beautiful message of chastity, living a life of purity. Our motto is spread the joy, so we really spread the joy today. So we have finishing prizes for everyone.
Deborah Susich is coordinator of New York's Goretti Group, a fellowship community named after Saint Maria Goretti, an Italian martyr and patroness of chastity.
The message of Saint Maria Goretti is that we have the strength inside of us with the grace of God to live a life of purity, to live a life of love in our relationships according to God's plan.
Runners and walkers, one foot in front of the other, 3 miles along Staten Island's Midland Beach, with the Verrazano Bridge serving as a backdrop.
It was hot.
Not good. That part wasn't good.
Denise Collins and her husband Patrick said despite the warm weather, the spirit of the Goretti Group motivated them.
We really like the philosophy and the idea that they're trying to promote about love and family and marriage and doing the best they can to lead a chaste life.
Excellent job! Great job!
The theme of the race is from the Bible, 1 Corinthians, glorify God in your body. Even clergy laced up for the cause, including Father Louis Jerome, pastor of St. Charles Church in Staten Island.
I try to do the best I can. I'm not as young as I used to be. I'm 60, so it's hard for me to get the motors going.
Archdiocese of New York Auxiliary Bishop Peter Burns said he hoped Catholics will spread the joy and the word about the race.
More people know about it. It'll grow year by year.
The Goretti Group raised $2,500 to support their mission. Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Finally tonight, a Good Samaritan gives a surprise gift to a fast food worker.
I bought you a dress. Oh my God. Here's the dress. Oh, thank you. Because you said you needed something to wear to church. Those are probably the people behind.
Uber driver Lamaya Jabbar picked up Diane. We don't know her last name. Diane was headed to work at a restaurant in Buffalo. During the trip, she told Lamaya that she was taking care of her grandkids and saving up to buy a dress for church. But money was tight and she was waiting until Christmas for the new clothes. That's when Lamaya took action. She bought a dress and got a $50 gift card. She delivered the gift to Diane at the drive-thru window. The overwhelming kindness stunned Diane. She thanked Lamaya for making her day great. That's Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.